All right, welcome to question 26 of the AAMC preview practice test review. And these are the last 5 questions of the test, so let us proceed. Scenario 26. As part of a class assignment, you're leading a team of students in a group activity. One student is trying their best but is struggling to keep up with the rest of the team. The student's pace is making it difficult for everyone else to complete their tasks, so you suggest the student briefly stop working and instead watch and learn from other team members. The next day, the student tells you they didn't receive credit for the assignment because the professor saw they didn't participate the entire time. All right. So, what's the main problem here? Well, while leading a team, you instructed a student to stop working, which led them to getting a bad grade on the assignment. All right, so, we've encountered a few problems so far where we've made a mistake. Always remember it's important to take responsibility, try to correct your mistake, really have that growth mindset. All right. Response 1. Share with the professor that the student was participating for the majority of the task. All right, so we can ask our initial differentiation. Hopefully by now everyone is, all right, let's just see. I think the flowchart is loading, but hopefully right now everyone is familiar with the flowchart and how to make initial and secondary differentiations. If not, just as a recap, while the chart is loading here on my end, we're going to narrow down our choices into 2 options first using a list of questions. And then once we have, narrowed it down to 2 different options, we will then narrow it down to 1 option using another list of questions. So, yeah. So for our initial differentiation, we don't have too long of a list of questions. And it's because we've been really using the second question quite heavily throughout this test. And that makes sense, right? Because if we ask, are you taking steps to resolve or address the main problem? If our differentiators, right, and if you go back to the 4-point scale, if those, in the definition of effectiveness relies on how likely you are to improve the situation or cause problems, well, if we ask, are we taking steps to address the main problem, that's often a good way to determine if we're going to improve the problem and to what degree. So let's ask that once again here. Are we taking steps to resolve or address the main problem? Well, remember the main problem was that we caused the student to get a bad grade. So are we taking steps to remedy that, right? Are you taking, and here, I think just off the cuff, we can say we are, right? We are going to the professor and trying to remedy the situation. So just based on that, I'm going to put this into either a 3 or a 4, right? We are taking steps to address the main problem of the student getting a bad grade because of our decisions and actions. All right. So how do we differentiate between a 3 and a 4? Definitely feel free to read through these. But one thing I want to emphasize here is, this last question we definitely added on in when we encountered a similar, question where we made a mistake. So it might be really useful here too. If you made a mistake, to what degree are you correcting your mistake? And alongside this, I'm going to add one more. I'm going to change it a little bit, right? Instead of just saying correcting, because this is a very important differentiator for understanding effectiveness in this question. To what degree are you correcting, or are you taking responsibility for your mistake? And that's key here because, as you can tell, we are not really we're not sharing with the professor that we were the ones that told students to stop working, right? And that's important because right now the professor thinks the students stopped working on their own, and that's why they didn't receive credit. So in turn, if we don't confess that, hey, we were the ones that asked the student to stop working, it still puts the blame and burden on the student when in fact we were responsible, right? So because of that, this won't improve the situation as strongly because it still puts the blame on the student for stopping work. Furthermore, the question stem identifies that, this last kind of this last sentence here, the student they didn't receive credit for the assignment because the professor saw they didn't participate the entire time. So we can infer from that it's important to participate the entire time to receive credit. Well, our response here is saying that the student was participating for the majority of the time, right? Because we know that in order to receive full credit, you need to participate the entire time, and we're only saying the student was participating for the majority of the task. This is, although we're addressing the issue and we're going to the professor and trying to correct things, it's not going to fully correct the mistake and regain the credit that the student deserves as likely, right? That's not as likely of an outcome as if we were to take responsibility, and as if and we didn't, we were saying for the majority of the task. Because of that, because it's less likely to improve the situation, this is going to make this a 3 response, right? It's only an effective response. We are addressing the issue, but it's not as likely to improve the situation for those reasons. All right. 26.2. 26.2. Explain to the professor that you asked the student to stop working to learn from others. All right, so let's ask again. Are we taking steps to resolve or address the main problem? Well, that's our initial differentiation, right? Very clearly we are. And off the bat, we can tell, hey, we're actually taking responsibility for this mistake this time, right? Because we are taking responsibility, now the burden has shifted away from the student and now onto us, which is the correct thing to do because we are the ones responsible for having the student to stop working, right? For that reason, we can go back to all these questions and definitely, read through these. I'm just going to point out and highlight the important ones that make our differentiation very clear. And for now, it is this last question here that's so important. We are correcting and taking responsibility for our mistake to a very high degree, and you can tell how this is much more likely to improve the situation, have the student, right, not be blamed or harmed because of our actions. This is much more likely than the last question. And it's not saying this is graded relative to the last question, but using the same methodology and same differentiation questions, this fulfills the requirements for being a 4 because it is likely to improve the situation. All right. 26.3. Offer to meet with a student and professor to explain that you asked the student to stop working. All right. So another question that we can right off the bat say, if we ask the question, are we addressing or taking steps to address the main problem? Very clearly, once again, we are, right? We're taking steps to address the main problem because we're offering to meet with the student professor, right? And once again, we're taking responsibility for our mistake. That's very, very clear. And this is once again going to make this a very effective answer, right? It shifts the burden from the student onto us, which is the correct action here because we are in fact responsible. All right, so very clearly, this is also, once again, a very effective response. Definitely go back to the chart and feel free to pause the video and make the differentiation yourself if you need more evidence to make that a very effective answer. All right. 26.4. Ask the other students in the team if they think the student should get credit. All right, so are you taking steps to resolve or address the main problem? Very clearly here, we are not addressing our mistake, right? We're not in any way, taking responsibility for it, number one, right? We're not correcting it in any way. And we're deferring to other students to ask if the students should get credit. Very clearly, although we are in some ways, trying to understand if the student should get credit, this is just not taking steps to really address the problem of the fact that we made a mistake, which caused the student to get harmed, right? In no way do we need to introduce these other stakeholders of other students in order to understand whether or not the student should receive credit, right? All right, so we can differentiate between a 1 or a 2. To what extent are you recognizing there's an issue, offering a solution, or relinquishing your responsibilities? Are there any over consequences to the response? Well, I think, one thing is we're not like outright disengaging from the problem, right? But let's ask, let's go to this question. Are you offering a solution, right? Are you offering any type of solution? And very clearly here we are not. Importantly, because the other students aren't involved in this decision making whether or not the student should receive credit, right? The professor decides whether the student should receive credit. Involving other students isn't in any way going to improve the situation. Very likely, though, it is gonna cause more problems for our current student, right? Other people now know they didn't receive credit. It definitely makes them uncomfortable. It's likely to increase conflict, with the one student. Furthermore, we can ask, to what degree are you taking accountability for your mistake? And that's very key in a problem where we have made a mistake, right? Importantly here, not only does this not offer any type of solution because the other students aren't involved in the grading, but we are not in any way taking accountability for the fact that we caused the situation to occur in the first place. Because we're not offering any type of solution and there are consequences, it could increase conflict with our one student who we harmed, and also, there's for the group dynamic, it's also likely going to increase conflict, right? Nonetheless, no accountability. We can put this into a very ineffective answer. All right, 26.5. 26.5. All right, did we do 26.4? Let me just go back and check. Ah, yes, okay, we just did that one. All right. Acknowledge your mistake to the student and ask if there is any way you can help them. All right, so are we taking steps to address the main problem, right? Are we taking steps to address or resolve the main problem? Very clearly we are, right? I'd say we are. We are acknowledging our mistake and we're asking if we can help in any way. I'm going to put this into a 2 or 3. We're owning up to it. All right, so how do we differentiate a 2 and a 3? Well, here, if we ask the same question we have been asking, we are definitely taking responsibility, right? Because we're acknowledging, we're validating the fact that we made a mistake. But there's another part of this question, right? To what degree are you correcting that mistake? Well, remember in the other questions we rated very effective, I think it was 26.2, 26.3, and I think, 26.2 and 3. And I think it was 26.1 too, right? Let me just make sure. Nonetheless, in the questions we just graded that were very effective, we went to the professor, right, and advocated on behalf of the student to receive a better grade. That was correcting the situation. Well, to what degree are we correcting the situation now? I'd say we're doing that to a much less degree, right? We are acknowledging our mistake, but in the manner of correcting it, well, all we're doing is asking if there is any way you can help them. One thing that does is not only does it, reduce our degree of correcting the mistake, but in the same vein, are we taking actionable, tangible steps to improve the situation? We are taking less actionable steps here, right, than if we were to go to the professor themselves and advocate for the student. So this is a less actionable step. Not only that, but if you ask, are you burdening any relevant stakeholders? Well, we're burdening our student, the student, who we harmed, because we are putting it on them to find a solution here. Where instead, if we were to take responsibility for the situation and for this mistake, we should be the one to offer the solution to correct it. For all those reasons, we're not correcting it to a much higher degree. The step is less actionable and we're burdening the student. This is going to be an effective response, a 3 response. All right. (26.6). Offer to help the student with another assignment in the future. All right, so are you addressing the problem? I'd say somewhat, right? Are we taking steps to address the problem? I'd say we are doing that somewhat. We are offering to help, right? But we're doing it for an assignment in the future. I'm gonna put this into a 2 or 3. There's some good things that, I guess we're taking responsibility in to some degree, but if we go down to differentiating a 2 and a 3 response, one of the most important questions we can ask here is, are we offering a solution to the main problem? And here, well, the main problem was this current group project that the student didn't receive credit on, right? That was a main problem here. And clearly we are not addressing or trying to correct or remedy that problem. Although we're taking some responsibility, we're not correcting that main problem. If we go back to the difference between a 2 and a 3 response, it's the ability to improve the situation or the ability to cause harm, right? And not improve the situation. Well, if we're not offering any solution to this main problem, there is no way in which we can improve the situation, right? There's no way we can improve the main problem. Although we're offering help with an assignment in the future, we are not offering a solution for this current problem. So it cannot be an effective response, which makes this an ineffective response. All right. All right, 26.7. Remind the student that they were slowing down the team. All right. So are we taking steps to address the main problem? Well, clearly we are not, right? We're not taking any steps to address or resolve the main problem or remedy the main problem in any way, right? In fact, what we're doing, if we go back to a 3 and a 4, we are not even recognizing there's an issue, that we made a mistake, right? Clearly over consequences, because this is not only going to harm our student and breed conflict, but it will also result in them not getting credit, which is a very overt response, right? We're disengaging from the problem, being very rude, clearly being very rude and disrespectful, and we're not taking accountability at all for our mistake. As a result, this all points to this being a very ineffective answer, right? We're blaming the student. In fact, we are the ones responsible. Not good. All right. So that was question 26. All finished. Once again, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments down below. I'd be more than happy to answer anything. Please like and comment and subscribe if you can. It really helps push the channel to more people. And I will see you all for question 27.